director that has dedicated her life to awakening people to their spiritual magnificence. She serves as the spiritual director of Spiritual Enlightenment and Truth-Focused Ministry, based in Rancho Cucamonga, California. It is a ministry that is both a community and a virtual-based ministry that focuses on highlighting the practical application of spiritual practices. Virtual-based ministry. We're heading that way, you know, not just on Sunday, but you can turn your phone on and check out people. I think it's great. This ministry also develops leadership programs and retreats to support people and originations in showing up as a beneficial presence in the world. It includes the production of the play, The Key, an inner guide to a higher vibration, and a breakthrough parenting classes that will be offered to the community in the fall of this year. Reverend Jerry is the author of the 30-day experiment of releasing the old and embracing the new. It's a 30-day program of anchoring newness in your life and releasing the things that no longer serve you. And it's based on book classic, Your Invisible Power, by Genevieve, I can't pronounce her last name, Ren. So Reverend Catherine would also like to add, Reverend Jerry holds a special place in my heart. She is one of my early instructors during my ministerial training. Her presence is one of pure love, and her sweet demeanor is only surpassed by the depth of wisdom that she holds. I am sorry that I will not be with you today to experience this gift to the world. I know you will be inspired by her, as I have been time and time again over these past 16 years. So please join me in welcoming to CSL-TV, Reverend Jerry Hall.
Great teamwork. This is what life is all about. It is learning to be fully present in this moment. And I am just so happy to see this community growing and expanding. And Reverend Catherine, I guess I have to say, she was one of my favorite students. She was one of my favorite students. And she brings so much light and so much energy, and I can see her mark here on each and every one of you. And so today, my intention is for us to have an experience of the heart. And I just love the song Joy. Joy is one of my favorite words. And the thing is, when we talk about having an experience of the heart, it is about living in joy. Ernest Holmes says, there is a power for good in the universe, and we can use it. Absolutely. Then Emma Curtis Hopkins says that there is good in the universe, and we should affirm daily that we ought to have it. So I want you to say this, repeat this after me. There is good, in the universe, and I ought to have it. There you go, you do have it. You do have it. And for this experience of the heart, it is fully engaging in laughter. We're going to laugh today. We're going to feel all of our emotions. They let us know that we are alive. And so I want to ask you guys all a very important question. And that question is, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Really? She's awake. You know, and engaging in life and having a heart experience can be as large as an elephant. It can be fulfilling, it can be exciting, it can be exhilarating, and yes, it can be tasty, can't it? She's my sidekick today. It can also appear to be overwhelming. There are times that it can be scary, it can be unmanageable, and it can sometimes be unpalatable. The human experience can be a continuous roller coaster ride when we are living So the key is learning how to live within ourselves. And so I was so happy to be here a couple of weeks ago and to learn that you guys are utilizing Oprah's book, The Path Made Clear by Oprah. And what she says at the beginning of the book, she says, there is no greater gift you can give or receive than the honor of your calling. It is why you were born and how you become most alive. So today we're going to talk about that voice that is within us. And we're going to call this the inner voice of empowerment. This is where we discover the call, and it is where the power for good resides. And it is the good, and I want us to start thinking and looking at it from this place. This is the part that sometimes I think kind of gets disheveled in that whole process. The good for all. Let's say that, the good for all. Because we want to make sure that that good is all inclusive. One of the things I love about these teachings is the fact that we talk about it being inclusive. That means that it works for us all. All of us, every single one of us. Ricky Byers wrote a song many years ago, and it was entitled, God Will Work Through an Open Heart. And having a God experience is what I believe Ernest Holmes meant towards the end of his life when someone asked him, if you could do anything different, would you do anything different? And his response is, I would have spoken more about love. And he says that love is the key. Eventually, we came up with the book, Love and Law, and we talked about that companionship of love and law. The reason I'm saying this, and I'm bringing this forward right now, is because love can transform and it can heal the world. And love, from my perspective, is a spiritual practice. It's the perfect tool for de-escalating emotional conflict, anxiety, stress, and all the conditions in the world. And I believe it is a conscious tool that can work for everyone in the world. And when we remember to bring love into the equation, we can change, we can transform, and it is part of the answer to all of the questions that we have been plagued with. It can go into those places that we, in our human experience, are unable to go. Ernest Holmes says, love rules through law. Love is the divine givingness. Law is the way, love is spontaneous. Law is impersonal. Love points the way, and law makes the way possible. It, in effect, is the perfect use of the law, and so much more. So what I'd like to do right now is, I love this idea. Reverend Sherry says, I'm going to call us the center. And I like that idea of us being the center. And so right now, I'm going to invite you to join me as a center. Can you imagine us being a center and a circumference for the entire world? Can you imagine us being a vortex of energy that is anchored in love? We can transform the world, can't we? So what I'd like to do right now is I would like for us to work together and optimize both the heart and the brain. I want to move us into what we call a quick coherence. And this is a technique that was developed by Heart Math Institute, something I've been practicing for many, many years. So I'm going to invite you to join me right now by placing your hand over your heart. Just feel your heart. Feel the rise and the movement of the heart. And as you're feeling the rise and the movement of the heart, heart, I'm going to invite you to just take a moment and just allow for the breath to slow down. Let's just breathe in on the count of 5. And to exhale or breathe out on the count of 5. Let's do that again. And again. And now I'm going to invite you to recall a moment when you were in a moment of deep appreciation, in gratitude, in joy. And just recall that moment. Just let it come to you, come to the surface. And as you're doing this, I'm inviting you right now to just regenerate that feeling right where you are, and allow it to come forward throughout the rest of the day. And so we say together, and so it is. Amen. Wow. So doing a spiritual practice like this throughout the day can be transformative. It can support us when we're in the midst of traffic. You know what I'm talking about? That 15 is quite interesting. The blessing is, I know I did coherence today before I got here. And we just flowed down that freeway with ease and grace. It was just wonderful because it's unpredictable, isn't it? That 15 freeway. But there's a practical application to our spiritual practice. Now, if you are interested in learning more about heart coherence, if you are going to be at a Silomar this summer at the SOAR conference, we're going to be doing a workshop. Myself and Reverend Carolyn Douglas, we're putting on a workshop on heart coherence. So my point is, when we slow ourselves down, because the world has sped up, we can find an opening for God to work through that open heart. We become more resilient, and we find in this inner compass a direction for our calling. Life does not happen to us. It unfolds within us. It is the key component to our empowerment. You see, we are so much more than our current circumstances. We are constantly evolving into something greater. I like to think of us as spiritual beings having a human experience. And it's so easy in this human experience to forget that we are spiritual beings, because we get wrapped up in the external world and those external circumstances. So when we pause and we reflect, we discover there is more to life. There is more to who we are and who we are. So I'm going to invite you now to turn to a neighbor, look at that person, look into their eyes, and I want you to smile. And I want you to say, I am a spiritual being. I have a spiritual being. There we are. Oxford Dictionary defines empowerment as the process of becoming stronger, more confident, especially in controlling one's life and claiming one's right. And from the science of mind perspective, that's a word that's used a lot when we're hearing that word empowerment. From the science of mind perspective, we say we believe in the eternality, the mortality, and the continuity of the individual soul forever and ever expanding. It is that process of strengthening ourselves. Something divine is happening within you right now. We also believe that heaven is right here and now. It is within us, and that we experience it to the degree that we become conscious of it. So we claim that right through our spiritual practice. Did you realize that showing up today was just the spiritual practice? Just coming together and being in community in this particular way, it can make a difference. It empowers you, it supports you, and it empowers the world. Because we get to transform our thinking. And as we transform our thinking, what we get to do is transform the thinking and the thought of the world. We get to learn how to walk, and we get to be that presence of change. So for me, these past couple of years, it's been an interesting time for me. It's been an interesting time for my family. I have 2 siblings. There were 4 of us. One had already passed over. And then I had 2 siblings that were moving through life-threatening illness. And so it was kind of hectic for me. It was hectic for our family. Eventually, one of the members ended up making his transition, and the other was able to recover, and I get to say and I get to share with you that she's healthy, and I'm so grateful for that. I am just truly grateful. And I'm going to say that our whole family is in a space now of gratitude. We're awake, we're aware, we're fully present. We're not just going through the mundaneness of life. And I feel honored to observe that whole process that we went through and the healing process, the depth of that experience. This experience proved to be a teachable moment. Now, the interesting thing about this is when we learn how to be awake and present, we can listen, we can tap into that inner ear. Ernest Holmes says, let the inner ear listen to the voice of truth that is always speaking to us. And when we listen to that inner voice, or the voice of truth that is always speaking to us, we get to learn so much more. We get to learn that we are more than we appear to be. So these 2 experiences prompted us as a family to be more appreciation and to be more aware of the choices that we were making. We were able to hear the inner whispers of the voice of empowerment. And many of us began to make changes within our lives, some things that we were taking for granted. Do you know how we get caught up into the world? And sometimes as we get caught up into the world, we get to start to do interesting things. I was counseling with someone yesterday, and the comment was, you know, I've just been caught up into all these things that are going on, and I have been eating in a way that is not for my highest and best good. And as a result of this, I'm dealing with this condition right now. So for us, that whole process was a moment of awakening, a moment of clarity at a deeper level. And one of the things that ended up happening was many of the members of our family started to say, you know what, I think I'm going to change this little thing here. I'm choosing to eat in this particular way. I'm choosing to do this in this particular way. One of the things that I chose to do was something I didn't always like doing, was getting on an exercise bike. And I'm proud to tell you that now part of my daily practice and my spiritual practice is getting on an exercise bike, and my goal is always burning 200 calories. Wow. So this was all prompted by my beloved. He decided he wanted to lose some weight, and he was going to make a drastic change. That drastic change was he was going to have surgery, and the surgery that he chose was the gastric sleeve surgery. I'm so happy to tell you that this man lost over 60 pounds. He's a few pounds away from his goal weight, and he's more spry, he's more alert. I'm going to ask him to stand up. Just let him right now where we're purging. We're doing a lot of purging, and that purge has to do with clothes and looking at the different sizes that he's moved through. But the most important thing is that choice was made. It was made from within. It wasn't outside about looking cute. I love looking cute. We all love looking cute. But you know what? Our cuteness and our beauty, it starts within ourselves. It starts within ourselves. And this can be a tipping point. But the key is engaging the heart, listening and discerning from within. Howard Thurman says, there is something in every one of you that waits, that listens for the sound of the genuine within yourself. It is the only true guide you will ever have. And if you cannot hear it, you will all of your life spend your days on the ends of strings that someone else pulls. Someone else pulls. So I have a question for you, and that question is, who have you come here to be? You are here on this planet in this particular way, at this particular time, with a purpose. And sometimes we get our purpose confused with the work that we do. We get it confused. And so I think that we're being called to move deeper. Everything around us is calling us to move deeper. And as we move deeper, we will find that our deeds, they're fine. But we're going to find more exuberance because we're discovering who we are and our purpose. Part of that, I love the fact that Reverend Sherry is going to be doing the class. You're going to be doing some Brene Brown work because we get to look at our stories. We get to tell our stories, and I love the fact when she says, you know, when you don't let anyone else tell your story, you make sure you tell your own story. And so this is part of that process. Now for me, the interesting part about this is I'm well known throughout the movement as a youth minister. In my day, when I was coming up, that was a big deal for me to get that letter of call as a youth minister. And I want to share with you, I did a lot of wonderful work. And I'm not just saying I did it from that ego point of view. I'm saying that I was an instrument. This is the most important part. I became an instrument for Spirit used me in a profound way. And I'm so grateful. I will always be grateful. But you know, the most important part about this process, some 20 years later, about 20 years ago, I was in the process of graduating from ministerial school. And when I was graduating from ministerial school, there was a question. And that question was, we were asked to write what the purpose of our ministry is. And what I wrote was that my ministry was a ministry of empowerment. It was a ministry that empowered people and supported people in their evolutionary growth. 20 years later, that vision and that purpose is still alive within me. Now that vision may show up in a different way. I'm no longer doing youth ministry the way I used to do youth ministry. It's a part of me. But the most important part of that whole process is that we continue to evolve. And as we evolve, the universe uses us in a profound way to support us with what is happening and what is present in this very moment. And as we do that, what we get to find is that that process of what we call empowerment is not just a one-dimensional thing. Empowerment is multi-layered, and it requires that we be expansive in our awareness and be aware of our intention and to use it with patience and with love. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to close, and I'm going to close with a story. I want to read you the story about the bamboo farmer. It's one of my favorite stories. And it says, there's an old Chinese tale of a farmer. He lived in a small rural community and had farmed traditional crops like corn, wheat, all of his life, just like his neighbors. But this farmer wanted more than what his neighbors had. So he started researching alternative crops. After studying a variety of options, he decided on bamboo. The climate, soil conditions, and equipment at his disposal would make him growing and harvesting bamboo a profitable business. He was convinced he was making the wisest choice and began making the changes needed to become a bamboo farmer. Upon telling his fellow farmers his idea, they mocked him, calling him foolish. All the time warning him that he was in impending peril. However, our farmer remained unshaken. He had done extensive research and was confident that he was making the right decision. If you know anything about bamboo, you know that the first year it's been planted, nothing happens. You don't get even a twig. His neighbors mocked him. They had harvested their crops while he had nothing to show for his effort. He was undaunted and confident in his decision. The second year, nothing happened either. Not even a sign of a bamboo tree anywhere. Again, he was forced to endure the ridicule of his heartless neighbors. The third and the fourth year, then suddenly, his crop grew a foot a day. By the end of the fifth summer, he had a virtual bamboo forest. He harvested his crops and sold it for a huge profit. His neighbors were astonished. It looked as if it had happened overnight, or it seemed. Did the plants lie dormant for 4 years only to grow exponentially in the fifth year? Or were they silently growing underground, developing a root system strong enough to support its potential for outward growth in the fifth year and beyond? Well, the answer is obvious. Had the trees not developed a strong, unseen foundation, it would not have sustained the life that it grew. Had the farmer not continued to nourish and love the farm with his implicit faith, they would have died without ever seeing the sun's love. Sometimes we have a goal and take action towards the goal, but it looks as though we weren't making progress. Perhaps it's a business that hasn't taken off yet. I can relate to that because I have a ministry, you know. Or perhaps it's a blog and an audience you have not tapped into yet. Or even it's a parenting goal that you haven't realized yet. Whatever it is, what we get to remember is that everyone can look at amazement when we are encouraged to hang in there, because the end is not there. We continue to evolve. So the goal if the goal is noble, then what we can do is we can continue to sow the seed until we reap the harvest. In other words, empowerment is the awakening of the soul. It is our continual expansion. It is the movement and the flow of energy. It is creation at its finest, and it is happening within us all and around us all when right now. Right now. And with that in mind, I'm going to invite you to join me. Join me as we move into prayer. So I'm just going to invite you to simply breathe, and I want to move back into that whole process of the heart. I'm going to invite you to take your hands and place your hands over your heart once more. We're going to strengthen the heart space today. Whatever is going on in our lives, we're going to strengthen that. We're going to strengthen whatever is going on in the world. We're strengthening the world for good. So I invite you to simply breathe again. We're going to slow down our breathing. Breathing in, breathing out. Exhaling again and again. And this time, I'm inviting you to recall a moment of compassion. Compassion for yourself. A moment of compassion for something that is unfolding in the world. Simply remembering the way of those that are part of our Eastern philosophy, our Buddhists, using compassion as a space where we show up as a tipping point, a presence for good in the world. And just acknowledging the beauty and the presence of that compassion showing up within the farmer, nurturing and supporting the vision of good, the idea of good, the strength and the presence of infinite possibilities, that wonderful presence that is alive right now, right here within this very room, moving and expanding itself and fulfilling itself right now through each individual. Acknowledging our oneness with the divine, a wellspring of infinite good and infinite peace and infinite harmony. That divine light of love. Love expanding and love fulfilling itself. Love bringing light to these wonderful teachings. Love expressing itself right now. And what I simply know is that something divine has fulfilled itself. It has revealed itself within each individual, within anyone that is hearing this prayer right now and beyond. What I know is that life of good, that presence of peace and harmony is alive and thriving. And it has moved into those sacred spaces. I'm calling them sacred spaces where we are unable to go. But what I know is there is a sacred awakening. There is the essence of spirit fulfilling itself and enriching itself. So what I know is that there is an upliftment right now. I know that that wonderful presence is the presence of wholeness. And that wholeness expands itself and fulfills itself within every cell of our being, within our body, temple. I know that there is a healing presence expanding itself, and it is moved in the inner workings of our plans, whatever those plans are. Perhaps there is something divine unfolding within our homes, within the spiritual home, within the plans and the movement of being a greater presence, a beneficial presence in the world. I know that something divine has ignited itself right now. And I know that that wonderful presence is the abiding presence within every single relationship. And that every relationship is up-leveled and the power for good fulfills itself and unifies us all in a deeper way. That it fulfills itself and enriches us. And anything that is unlike it, it simply falls to the wayside. And that good is fulfilled. And so I'm in this moment of joy. And in this moment of joy, I have complete gratitude. Gratitude for the richness of the divine, moving, expanding itself, and fulfilling itself. And what I know is that it is perfect and it is good. And in this goodness, right here, right now, I simply release these sacred words, these thoughts, this feeling, this emotion into that sacred yes that we call universal law, knowing that it is all done. And I invite you to affirm with me, and so it is. Amen. Thank you.